John Hall, who is the Interim Executive Director of the Responsible Jewellery Council. The RJC is a global organisation promoting ethics and sustainability in the jewellery industry and works with associations and industry members all over the world to change the landscape of the industry for a positive future. John has been with the RJC since its inception, and this year they're celebrating their 20th anniversary. Congratulations. Welcome to the stage, Mr. John Hall.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I appreciate it. Well, welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. I spend a lot of my time in London and have done for the last 20 years, but more recently I come back often to the city of my birth and I spend as much time as I can in Sydney. So it's always lovely to be here in such a familiar and welcoming environment. So a little bit about my background and then I'll talk to you about the RJC. So my background is mostly in the resources industry. So I was formerly GM External Affairs for Rio Tinto. And it was that role that brought me in contact with the jewellery industry because part of my role was to support the Rio Tinto Diamond Group, which was then fairly substantial, not so substantial now, but back in 2005, it was significant, and also, of course, Rio mines gold and silver, so they're definitely in the jewellery supply chain. And so, why was the RJC formed? Well, you will all no doubt remember the whole blood diamond issue, which caused the formation of the Kimberley process, which was launched in 2003. I'm sure you remember that, and of course, the famous Ed Zwick film of the same name. And all of those things really put the jewellery industry in the spotlight. So there were a group of concerned companies and associations in the jewellery supply chain that were concerned that we needed a standard for the whole of the industry. The KP is a fantastic thing, of course, and it's unique in the world, but it has a limitation, and that is that it covers only rough, and it doesn't go beyond rough. So it was felt back then that we needed something stronger than that for the industry. And the model that we were most interested in was the Forest Stewardship Council, which was really the pioneer of product sourcing standards, in that case timber and paper. And now, of course, it's almost a household name. You walk into any Bunnings or any Dimmicks and you will find timber or a book with the FSC logo. We thought at the time, well, wow, what about, maybe we could do something like that for jewellery and for the jewellery supply chain. And so that was the concept. And we were driven by the idea that all jewellery should be responsibly sourced. That was our mantra, and it continues to be. So there were 14 founders. Now there are more than 2,000 members, and I have to pinch myself sometimes that we're now 20 years down the line, and we have so many members, literally from 74 countries, covering all of the supply chain. We've got miners, refiners, cutters and polishers, traders, manufacturers, and retailers, big and small, from mum and dad companies right to the LVMHs and Richemonts of the world. They're all part of the RJC. So let me continue. We all know that the world is changing and that we have consumers now that are more informed, more discerning, and more demanding than ever. And of course, they can research a company or a product in seconds on their smartphone. So their access to information has never been better. They want to know the story behind what they buy. They want to understand where materials come from, how they were sourced, and what was the impact on the communities and the environment that was involved. They're seeking products that align with their values, and that is especially true of younger consumers. So we have, over a long time, faced scrutiny about sourcing and human rights and environmental impact. We're not the only industry that faces that critique, but we sell products that represent love and significant moments in people's lives. So there's a special responsibility, I think, that attaches to jewellery. We have to really step up to those critiques. And, you know, the risks of not doing so are terrible. You know, reputation damage, loss of consumer trust, and ultimately, you know, it can be a threat to the viability of the jewellery business as a brand, if you like. But I would also say that we are already a very sustainable industry. I mean, the fact is that no one throws jewellery away, and it has been a part of human beings for as far back as we know. We know, for example, that all jewellery has been recycled for at least 6,000 years. I often point that out to people when they say to me, well, you know, not a very sustainable industry, is it? I think, well, actually, it's one of the most sustainable industries already, but there's more that we need to do. So, I think these are challenges that are opportunities, and I think that's the way we need to see them. Companies that embrace these challenges and that prioritise responsible practices and demonstrate a genuine commitment to sustainability will be the leaders of tomorrow, and they will attract and retain customers, build stronger relationships, and ultimately a more resilient, prosperous future. So that's where the RJC comes in. We are the standards organisation for responsible practices for the jewellery industry globally, covering ethical, social and environmental issues throughout the whole supply chain, from mine to retail, covering precious metals, gold, silver, platinum group metals, diamonds and gemstones, natural diamonds and lab-grown gemstones. So all of those products are within the scope of the RJC Code of Practices. The mission is simple. As I said before, everything should be produced responsibly, produced and sold in a way that respects human rights and protects the environment, promotes fair labour practices. Essentially, we say that responsible business is good business, and we're committed to helping our members to achieve that goal. One of the things that sets us apart is a very multi-stakeholder approach. So we do bring together businesses of all sizes, from small jewellers through to the multinationals, as well as civil society organisations and other stakeholders. So it's a very inclusive and robust approach in the way that we develop our standards. So a little bit more about the standards, which I keep on using that word, but they're quite specific. So the key one it's called the Code of Practices. It's our foundational standard. It was launched in 2009, so it took us 4 years to develop the first version. It's now in its 4th iteration, but you know, there's a lot in it. So it covers all of the issues that you would assume that it would. In particular, ethical, social, environmental issues. Everything from human rights and labour practices to environmental management and anti-corruption, of course. It has 45 clauses. Then the second standard is a chain of custody standard for precious metals, so gold, silver and PGMs. And that is for companies that wish to prove that they control the chain of custody for their materials. So if you adopt the COC standard, then you will be audited against it. So you need to make sure that you have the proof points for the audit. And then finally, and in fact earlier this year, we released a laboratory-grown materials standard for lab-grown diamonds and lab-grown gemstones. And as you might imagine, that standard covers in particular claims that you make about a lab-grown product, disclosure, of course, testing, and product segregation as you're manufacturing. And so, again, it took us several years to develop that standard, but it's now launched. It was launched in February, and we have several members already going through the audit process who are dealing with lab-grown, and we know that most of our including our retail members, and I think most of our manufacturers are dealing in one way or another with lab-grown. So it's become part of the industry again. I know you know that. So the journey towards a more responsible and sustainable industry, it requires leadership at all levels. It's not just about top-down mandates. It's about every one of us taking ownership and driving the change in any way that we can within our own sphere. So I hear you say to me, well, what's the value proposition? Why would we do that? Apart from the obvious ethical one, it's about retaining reputation and consumer trust. It's about new markets, sometimes access to capital, and also risk management. So I would urge you all to learn more about the RJC. Everything that we do is published. It's all open source on the website, so all the standards are published. We do have some particular resources that are for members only, as you might imagine, but 95% of our material is published, open source. So please take a look at the website and indeed come and talk to me. I'll be here for the next several days, so happy to talk to you at any time. Finally, I think we need to keep working together. And, my experience in the industry is that we do actually work quite closely together, and there are many industry associations and people join them because they think that it's important to join together and face up to these things as a group. And so I do believe that it's in the DNA of the industry to take that sort of approach. So look, I hope you found that interesting. As I said, I'm here if you'd like more information. And Laura, if you like, I can take some questions.
Hi. Sorry, are you finding a little bit more of a response, I guess, towards what you do now with, I guess, clients being a little bit more conscious? Or are you hearing feedback that clients are asking where things are coming from? Are they definitely, we can say this is where we want to go, but is it what consumers are actually starting to ask for? And I understand that there's a whole lot of greenwashing that sometimes comes with it. So what do you also, I guess, have to deal with in regards to that as well?
Okay, so let me take the last question first. Greenwashing is an issue, and it's obviously can be damaging because, as I said earlier, we live in a world where information is at everybody's fingertips. So if you make a claim, you better make sure that it's kosher. And if you're a member of the RJC and you make a claim, you'll be audited against it. And there are several ways that occurs. You can make a product claim, for example. It can be anything really, but whatever you say about it, you need to be able to prove to the auditor that it's true. So yes, we do have to be careful about greenwashing. Are consumers more, do they more often say that they're concerned about these issues? Yes, we hear that from many of our retail members. But I think it's also a combination of listening to the consumers, but also showing leadership. So I think that most consumers assume that jewellery is responsible because it's jewellery. So when they come into our stores, I think mostly they come in with that assumption at the back of their mind. So I think what we have to be careful about is that we do in fact make sure that we are acting responsibly. So it's a combination of the two things. Be prepared, because ultimately, if you do face some sort of a public issue, then you need to have a solid riposte. Well, yes, we're aware of that issue, but here's what we do. If you don't have a solid answer to it, you're in real trouble. So again, that kind of media scrutiny can be brutal. So that's another reason why we need to do this sort of work, I think. No, it's a fully third-party system. So the RJC publishes a list of auditors that have been trained to understand what are in the codes, and it's pretty extensive. There's about 40 hours of training that they have to do to make sure that they understand what the codes actually require. But the relationship is purely between the member and the auditor. The RJC doesn't intervene. And the certification decision is made by the auditor, not by the RJC. So we own the standard, but the auditors manage the certification. That's how it works.
Thanks. Are the standards something that small jewellery brands can adhere to or can attain, or are they more extensive than that?
Well, within the membership, we do have, let me give you the figures. So 85% of our membership are SMEs. And I think that's reflective of the jewellery industry around the world, isn't it? Wherever the industry is significant, in every country that I can think of, they are mostly smaller businesses. There are some big exceptions to that, but as I said, 85% are SMEs. And so it is possible for smaller members to meet the standards. And they're written in a way that applies to the part of the supply chain that you're in. So obviously, for example, there are a number of mining related standards, but if you're a retailer or a manufacturer, they don't apply to you at all. On the other hand, there are other parts of the code that apply to everyone, like the human rights and labour practices sections. But the bottom line is, yes, it's accessible to smaller organisations, which I think is what you're getting at. Yeah. Who else?
Frequency in recertification, or once you've got a certification, how often you have to?
Yes, sure. So the certification is issued for 3 years, but there's a half-term update. So there's a mini audit, I guess you'd call it, 18 months in, and sometimes that can be done just as a desktop. But under the ISO system that is applicable to the RJC as a standard, the mid-term review is important. But essentially, it's a 3-year certification.
Involved what's the cost involved for a business to be part of the council? So
there's a scale of there's an annual fee, and that is based on your relevant turnover. So it's available on the website. I can distribute it. And for smaller organisations, I think the lowest level is $750 a year. So for many of our members, it's not a great deal of money. The larger cost tends to be the audit, and of course that, again, relates to the size of the business. And I mean, if you're say a multi-retail business, then they don't audit every shop. They take a sample, and there's a guide about how do you do the sampling. I mean, we have got members that have, well, Signet, for example, has 3,000 stores, but they don't audit. You can imagine they audit a handful of them. So that's basically how it works. The sampling approach.
Once you've gone through the accreditation process and you've got your certification member, is there support for businesses to use the logo, use all the assets?
Yes. So there are a lot of assets that are available to members to use, and just a week ago we launched a retail campaign, which includes marketing related assets, logos, a range of materials, talking points, all those sorts of things. So yes, we 98% of what we do is supporting members. So we get literally thousands of queries a year, which the team answer quickly. And so it's not just making resources available on the website, but it's also a bespoke service, if you like, to members. We don't have a big team. I think we have 32 staff and half a dozen consultants, but they field a lot of inquiry. I mean, a lot of them are about, I'm going through my audit, I've got a question. We get a lot like that, but also a lot are around, how can I talk about the RJC? What can I say? How can I use the logo? And there are logo guides and all that sort of thing on the website.
Morning, John. Hi. Sorry, it's probably on your website, but you would have all of your members available on the website so that if we were to source gold, diamonds, gemstones, then we'd know who to source from, and that's how we'd approach it. Yeah, is that right?
Yes. So every member is listed on the website, and the website is, of course, searchable. So yes, every one of them is listed on the site. And we get a lot of queries like that. I want to do business with an RJC member. How do I go about that? And yes. So it's all out there. It's all public. Yeah.
Thanks. Can you provide some examples of what a small jewellery brand would need to achieve to be able to be considered a member?
Yes. So there's a guidance to becoming certified, and it's basically a document that you go through that essentially means you do the audit on yourself. So we really urge members to go through that document because that's how you get prepared. So it's things like if you're a buyer of diamonds, for example, do you have copies of things like Kimberley process certificates? Do your invoices include the World Diamond Council system of warranty statement? Those sorts of things. It's a systems related audit. It might ask you what sort of labour rules do you apply to your workforce. So it'll ask you questions around those sorts of things. Anything to do with the way you manage your supply chain. Do you have a due diligence approach? Do you have an anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing policy, which of course is now required globally by law in most countries. But the auditor will ask to see evidence that you have those sorts of policies in place. It's things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it does. In fact, we've mapped the code of practices to the SDGs, to all of them, and at the front of our annual report, that we list how that works, how the goals relate to the standards. So yeah, absolutely, and we're also a member of the UN Global Compact, and we issue a report as you're required to by membership of it. And that also sets out, how our impact is positively affecting the industry. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pleasure. Okay, looks like we're done, Laura. Well, thank you very much, everybody.